In 1913, Carl Jung stood on the precipice of what he would later call his creative illness, a psychological descent so profound it nearly destroyed him. But what triggered this crisis wasn't external trauma or professional failure. It was something far more unsettling. Jung had begun seeing visions of a dark figure following him everywhere he went. In dreams, in waking moments, in reflective surfaces, this shadow self pursued him relentlessly, embodying every quality Jung consciously rejected in himself. His rage, his grandiosity, his capacity for cruelty, his forbidden desires, everything he'd spent his life denying. Initially, Jung tried what most people do when confronted by their darkness. He ran, he rationalized, he projected these qualities onto others. But the shadow wouldn't be ignored. The more Jung resisted, the more the visions intensified, until he faced a choice that would revolutionize depth psychology, confront what he'd been hiding from himself, or be consumed by it. Jung chose confrontation, and what he discovered in that darkness would become one of psychology's most powerful and most misunderstood concepts: the shadow self. Not the evil within us, but the disowned parts of ourselves we've exiled to unconsciousness. And Jung's revelation was devastating. The qualities you most intensely judge in others are almost always the exact qualities you're refusing to acknowledge in yourself. That confrontation nearly broke Jung, but it also awakened him. He realized that the shadow isn't your enemy, it's your unintegrated power. Every quality you've repressed to become acceptable, every emotion you've silenced to maintain your self-image, every desire you've denied to fit social expectations. These don't disappear when you reject them. They descend into the unconscious and begin operating autonomously, sabotaging your relationships, derailing your goals, projecting onto others, and controlling your life from the darkness. Jung would spend the rest of his career teaching what he learned in that terrifying descent. You don't defeat the shadow by fighting it. You integrate it by recognizing that what you hide from yourself doesn't go away. It grows in the darkness. Dark. And the price of that avoidance isn't safety. It's living half a life, controlled by the very qualities you're pretending you don't possess. If you've ever felt intense, inexplicable dislike for someone and later realized they embodied qualities you secretly feared in yourself, if you've sabotaged success just when achievement felt within reach, if you find yourself judging others harshly for behaviors you occasionally notice but immediately rationalize away in yourself, you're experiencing shadow operation. This isn't about being bad or evil, it's about being human. Jung discovered that everyone has a shadow, the repository of everything we've decided is unacceptable about ourselves. And modern neuroscience confirms his intuition. Unconscious processes drive up to 95% of our behavior. The shadow isn't metaphorical. It's the autonomous operation of disowned parts of yourself, making choices you think you're consciously controlling. Dr. John Bargh's research on automaticity demonstrates that unconscious motivations, many rooted in repressed shadow material, determine most of our decisions, relationships, and reactions. You think you're choosing your responses, but if you haven't integrated your shadow, it's choosing for you. And the mechanisms are precise. Projection, seeing in others what you deny in yourself. Compensation, becoming the opposite of what you fear you are. Inflation, identifying with idealized persona while shadow grows in proportion. Understanding this doesn't just improve self-awareness. It determines whether you'll spend your life being unconsciously controlled by the very qualities you're consciously rejecting. What you're about to learn are the 7 shadow principles most people never discover, the hidden signs your shadow is running your life, and Jung's integration protocol that transforms darkness from enemy into power source. Principle 1. The projection mechanism. You hate in others what you hide in yourself. Jung's most revolutionary discovery, the qualities that trigger your strongest negative reactions in others, are precise mirrors of qualities you've disowned in yourself. This is shadow projection, the psyche's automatic mechanism for externalizing what it can't acknowledge internally. It's not that you're secretly identical to people you dislike, it's that they're expressing variations of qualities you've repressed, and seeing those qualities externalized feels like looking at a part of yourself you've exiled. Modern research on psychological projection confirms Jung's intuition with stunning precision. Dr. Sigelbarside's work on emotional contagion and Dr. Gordon Allport's classic research on prejudice both demonstrate that the traits people most vehemently criticize in others correlate significantly with their own unconscious characteristics. The mechanism is neurological. When you observe behavior that matches repressed shadow material, your amygdala activates threat responses before conscious processing occurs. You're not reacting to the person, you're reacting to the disowned part of yourself they're reflecting. Consider Michael, who experienced intense, visceral disgust for a colleague who constantly sought attention and dominated conversations. Michael prided himself on being modest and considerate, the opposite of his colleague's narcissism. But in depth analysis, Michael recognized a devastating pattern. As a child, his emotional needs had been invalidated whenever he expressed them, so he'd learned to suppress all desires for attention. His shadow contained massive unexpressed need for recognition and visibility. His colleague wasn't his enemy. He was Michael's mirror, showing him the disowned narcissistic needs Michael had spent decades pretending he didn't have. Once Michael integrated this, acknowledging, "I also want to be seen, I also want attention, and that's human, not shameful," his disgust dissolved. The colleague hadn't changed. Michael's relationship to his shadow had. Your practice. Identify the 3 people who trigger your most intense negative reactions. Write down exactly which qualities in them repel you. Then ask the uncomfortable question, how am I this? Your mind will resist violently. Good, that resistance is the shadow protecting itself. Push through. Find even subtle ways you demonstrate these qualities, different expressions, different contexts, but the same essential trait. This recognition doesn't excuse others' harmful behavior. It reclaims power you've been giving away through projection. But projection is only the beginning. The second principle reveals shadow's hidden power. Principle 2. The golden shadow. Your greatest strengths are also repressed. Most people misunderstand Jung's shadow as containing only darkness, anger, selfishness, cruelty. But Jung's insight was more subtle. The shadow contains everything you've exiled to become acceptable. And for many people, especially those with low self-esteem or harsh upbringings, the shadow contains their power, creativity, sexuality, confidence, qualities deemed threatening by caregivers or culture and therefore repressed. This is the golden shadow. Disowned brilliance, buried potential, silenced gifts. Dr. Nathaniel Branden's research on self-esteem demonstrates that people with fragile self-concepts often repress positive qualities more than negative ones. Why? Because owning your power, claiming your gifts, expressing your confidence would threaten the self-image you've built on being modest, helpful, or non-threatening. The golden shadow creates a tragic pattern. You admire these qualities intensely in others, positive projection, while convinced you don't possess them. But you do, you've just banished them. Dr. Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's closest collaborator, worked with a patient who idolized artists and creatives while insisting she had no creative talent. Through analysis, Franz discovered the woman had shown remarkable artistic gifts as a child, but her pragmatic parents had dismissed art as frivolous. The woman internalized this judgment, repressing her creativity into the golden shadow. Decades later, she worshipped it in others while denying it in herself. Once she integrated this, reclaiming, "I am creative, that part of me exists and deserves expression," her life transformed. Not because she became a professional artist, but because she stopped living as a fragment of herself. The practice? Identify 3 qualities you intensely admire in others, qualities that feel almost magical or unattainable to you. These are likely golden. Shadow projections. Then ask, when in my life did I express this quality, even subtly, and get punished, dismissed, or shamed for it? Find the moment you learned this quality wasn't safe to own. That's when it entered the shadow. Integration doesn't require becoming these qualities perfectly. It requires acknowledging they exist in you and giving them conscious expression, however small. Yet even recognizing projections won't protect you from the third shadow mechanism. Principle 3. The compensation trap, becoming the opposite of what you fear. Jung observed a fascinating pattern. People often build entire identities around being the opposite of qualities they fear possessing. The person terrified of being selfish becomes compulsively self-sacrificing. The person afraid of weakness becomes rigidly strong. The person scared of their anger becomes excessively nice. This is compensation, constructing a persona specifically to distance yourself from shadow qualities. But here's the trap. The more extreme your persona, the larger your shadow grows to balance it. This isn't just psychological theory. It's observable in behavior patterns Dr. Karen Horney documented in her work on neurotic trends. People don't just repress qualities, they often become their polar opposites as proof they don't possess the feared trait. But the shadow doesn't shrink through denial, it inflates. And periodically, it erupts. The compulsively nice person has explosive rage outbursts. The rigidly controlled person binges on chaos. The self-sacrificing person suddenly acts with shocking selfishness. These aren't personality contradictions. They're shadow returns, the psyche's attempt to restore balance. Consider David, who prided himself on being rational, controlled, never emotional, the opposite of his volatile, emotionally unpredictable father. David's entire identity was built on not being like his father. But his relationships consistently failed because partners experienced him as cold, disconnected, unable to access genuine feeling. In therapy, David recognized his compensation. He'd shadowed all emotion to ensure he'd never be like his father. But emotions don't disappear when repressed. They operate unconsciously. David's rationality was actually emotional numbness, and his shadow contained the full emotional range he'd denied. Integration didn't mean becoming his father. It meant acknowledging, I have emotions, including volatile ones, and that's human, without being controlled by them. The protocol: identify the qualities you're most proud of being opposite to. I'm not, quality, like person you're comparing yourself to. These pride points often mark compensations. Then ask, what would it cost me to admit I also possess the quality I'm compensating against? The answer reveals what you're protecting by maintaining the split. Integration requires acknowledging both poles exist in you, the quality and its opposite, without identifying exclusively with either. But compensation is just defense. The fourth principle reveals shadow's most dangerous power. Principle 4. The autonomous complex. When shadow makes decisions for you. This is Jung's most unsettling discovery. Severely repressed shadow material doesn't just sit dormant. It becomes an autonomous complex, a semi-independent subpersonality making decisions without your conscious awareness. You think you're choosing your reactions, your relationships, your life direction. But if major shadow material remains unintegrated, it's choosing for you, systematically sabotaging anything that threatens to expose it. Modern neuroscience validates this through research on dissociation and implicit memory systems. Dr. Bruce Perry's work on trauma demonstrates that unprocessed psychological material creates autonomous neural patterns, reaction scripts that activate without conscious involvement. When shadow material achieves autonomy, it operates like a separate person inside you, with its own goals remaining hidden and methods sabotaging anything that might force it into consciousness. Dr. James Hollis documents cases where people unconsciously sabotage relationships that get too good because intimacy threatens to expose shadow material they're protecting. One patient repeatedly chose unavailable partners, not consciously, but through an autonomous pattern. Whenever someone genuinely available appeared, she'd find fatal flaws and end it. Analysis revealed her shadow contained massive terror of abandonment from childhood, which had become autonomous. The shadow's logic: if I only choose unavailable people, I control when they leave. Genuine intimacy means risking uncontrolled abandonment. This wasn't her conscious choice. It was her shadow's autonomous operation, making relationship decisions to protect itself. The practice: identify patterns where you consistently sabotage yourself in specific areas: relationships, career, health, creativity. Not occasional mistakes, but repetitive, almost compulsive self-sabotage. These often mark autonomous shadow complexes. Ask: what would successful relationships, career, health force me to confront about myself that I'm not ready to face? The answer reveals what the shadow is protecting you from and what it's costing you by doing so. Integration requires recognizing the complex exists, understanding its protective function, and choosing to face what it's been protecting you from. The fifth principle explains why this work feels so difficult. Principle 5, the identity threat: why integration feels like death. Here's why most people never complete shadow work. Integrating shadow material doesn't feel like growth. It feels like identity annihilation. If you've built your entire self-concept around being kind, acknowledging your cruelty feels like dying. If you've organized your life around being strong, admitting your vulnerability feels like dissolving. The shadow integration isn't just uncomfortable, it threatens the coherent self-story you've spent decades constructing. This is what Jung called the death of the persona, the necessary dissolution of the false self you've built before the authentic self can emerge. But neuroscience shows why this is so terrifying. Your brain's default mode network creates narrative coherence about who you are, and threats to that narrative activate literal threat responses: elevated cortisol, amygdala activation, fight or flight. To your nervous system, shadow integration isn't psychological growth, it's survival threat. Dr. Tara Brach's work on radical acceptance. Clients recognize shadow material intellectually, but resist embodying it because doing so would require becoming someone they've sworn never to be. One patient recognized her shadow contained rage she'd been suppressing since childhood, but every attempt to express it triggered panic. If I let this out, I'll become my abusive mother. The shadow integration felt literally life-threatening to her identity as the calm one, the safe one, not like her. The protocol requires what Jung called holding the tension of opposites, acknowledging contradictory qualities without resolving the contradiction. You are both kind and cruel, both strong and vulnerable, both generous and selfish. Integration doesn't mean becoming those shadow qualities exclusively. It means acknowledging they exist alongside your persona qualities. Practice this. When you identify shadow material, instead of "I'm not that," try "I contain this quality along with its opposite." The discomfort you feel is identity reorganization, uncomfortable but necessary. The sixth principle reveals shadow's most insidious operation. Principle 6. The scapegoat mechanism: sacrificing others to avoid your shadow. When shadow pressure becomes unbearable, the psyche deploys an ancient defense: scapegoating, finding an external person or group onto whom you project all shadow material, then attacking them with righteous fury. This isn't just interpersonal conflict, it's psychological ritual, unconsciously sacrificing the other to avoid confronting yourself. And it operates at every level: personal relationships, workplace dynamics, political tribalism, cultural conflict. Dr. René Girard's anthropological research on scapegoating demonstrates it's a universal human pattern. Groups under psychological pressure identify an outsider, project all collective shadow onto them, then unite through their persecution. On individual levels, this manifests as finding one person who becomes the repository of everything you can't accept in yourself, then attacking them with intensity that feels justified but is actually projected self-hatred. Jung worked with a patient who experienced violent rage toward his brother, whom he described as lazy, irresponsible, a failure. The intensity seemed disproportionate until analysis revealed the patient had suppressed all his own desires to rest, to pursue less ambitious goals, to live with less pressure. His shadow contained the lazy, irresponsible parts he'd exiled. His brother wasn't the problem. His brother was living the shadow life the patient had forbidden himself, and the patient's rage was unconscious envy disguised as moral judgment. Once integrated, the rage dissolved. His brother hadn't changed, the patient's relationship to his own shadow had. Your practice: identify someone you've turned into a scapegoat, a person whose mere existence enrages you, whom you've made responsible for problems in your life or world. Then ask the brutal question: what would I have to admit about myself if this person didn't exist to blame? That answer reveals the shadow material you've been projecting onto them. Integration doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior. It means reclaiming the power you've given away through scapegoating. The final principle is the most challenging and most liberating. Principle 7, the integration paradox. Your wholeness requires embracing what you've rejected. Jung's ultimate teaching: you cannot become whole by eliminating parts of yourself. Integration, what Jung called individuation, requires acknowledging and consciously relating to every aspect of your psyche, including qualities you find repulsive. This is the paradox. The very traits you've spent your life rejecting are necessary for psychological wholeness. Not acting them out unconsciously, but integrating them consciously so they stop controlling you from the shadow. Dr. Robert Johnson, Jungian analyst, explains, "We don't integrate the shadow by becoming it. We integrate it by acknowledging its existence, understanding its origins, and giving it conscious, appropriate expression." The person who integrates their shadow anger doesn't become violent. They become able to set boundaries. The person who integrates shadow selfishness doesn't become narcissistic. They become able to prioritize their needs without guilt. Jung analyzed a woman who repressed all her selfish desires to be the perfect caregiver. Her shadow was massive, decades of unexpressed needs. But integration didn't mean abandoning caregiving. It meant acknowledging, I have needs too, and meeting them doesn't make me selfish, it makes me human. Once integrated, she became a better caregiver because she wasn't unconsciously resenting those she helped. The paradox: embracing your selfishness made her more genuinely generous. The practice: for each major shadow quality you've identified through previous exercises, ask not, how do I eliminate this, but how would consciously owning this quality in balanced, appropriate ways actually improve my life? Integrated anger becomes healthy boundary setting. Integrated vulnerability becomes authentic connection. Integrated selfishness becomes self-care. The shadow doesn't need to be destroyed. It needs to be understood, accepted, and consciously expressed. Integration, the shadow reclamation protocol. You now understand the 7 principles. But Jung knew understanding isn't integration. The shadow reclamation protocol provides systematic methods for this most challenging psychological work. Week 1-2, Projection Inventory. List everyone who triggers strong negative reactions. For each, identify exactly which qualities repel you. Then find those qualities in yourself. Different expressions, but same essence. This creates awareness of projection mechanisms. Week 3-4, Golden Shadow Mining. Identify qualities you intensely admire in others. Trace when you expressed these and got punished/shamed. Write letters to your younger self reclaiming these qualities. It's safe now to be creative, powerful, visible. Week 5-6, Compensation Recognition. Identify persona qualities you're proud of being opposite to something. Acknowledge both poles exist in you. Practice statements. I am both kind and cruel, both strong and weak, both generous and selfish. Week 7-8, autonomous complex dialogue. When you notice self-sabotage, personify the shadow part responsible. In imagination, ask it, "What are you protecting me from by sabotaging this?" Listen to its answer. It's trying to help, just with outdated strategies. Week 9-10, Integration Embodiment. Choose one shadow quality. Give it small, conscious, appropriate expression weekly. Repressed anger, set one boundary. Repressed selfishness, prioritize your needs once. You're teaching your psyche these qualities can be expressed safely. Week 11-12, Wholeness. Practice daily affirmation of integrated opposites. I contain multitudes. I am contradictory and whole. I accept all parts of myself. This rewires identity from fragmented, persona only, to integrated, persona plus shadow. The ethical warning. Shadow integration doesn't license acting out harmful impulses. Integration means conscious relationship with shadow qualities, not unconscious expression. You acknowledge rage exists without being violent. You own selfishness without exploiting others. Integration is about consciousness, not behavior permission. The promise. People who integrate shadow don't become dark. They become whole. They stop being controlled by unconscious projections. They access power they'd exiled. They build authentic relationships because they're not projecting. They make conscious choices because shadow complexes aren't sabotaging them. Jung called this individuation, becoming who you actually are, not who you're pretending to be. Return to 1913, to Jung standing before his shadow. He could have continued running, denying, projecting. Most people do. But Jung chose confrontation. And what he found in that darkness wasn't the monster he feared. It was power, creativity, authenticity, all the qualities he'd exiled to become acceptable. The shadow wasn't his enemy. It was his unintegrated self, demanding recognition. You now possess what Jung spent decades discovering. The shadow contains everything you've hidden from yourself. And that hiding doesn't protect you. It fragments you, leaving you controlled by the very qualities you're pretending you don't have. Every intense judgment is a projection. Every extreme persona trait has an equal shadow. Every sabotage pattern is an autonomous complex. Every scapegoat is a mirror. But here's Jung's final gift. You don't defeat the shadow. You integrate it. And integration doesn't mean becoming your darkness. It means finally admitting you contain darkness alongside light, weakness alongside strength, selfishness alongside generosity. It means becoming whole instead of good, human instead of ideal. The choice Jung faced is the choice you face now. Keep hiding from parts of yourself, controlled by what you won't acknowledge, or turn toward the shadow, reclaim what you've exiled, and become finally, frighteningly, liberatingly whole. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your disowned self, waiting in the darkness for you to finally come home. In our next exploration, we'll reveal the advanced integration practices, how to work with shadow in relationships, the collective shadow operating in culture, and the transcendent function that emerges when shadow and ego finally reconcile. That's mastery, but it begins here, with recognition, with courage, with finally admitting. What you hide from yourself doesn't disappear. It runs your life from the dark. The shadow is waiting. Jung faced his. Will you face yours?